This video is going to be a very quick crash course in the idea of pH as it applies to biology. This is not the level of depth that you would need for a dedicated chemistry class like Gen Chem. I'll cover that in a different video once I get a general chemistry playlist going. For right now, for the sake of biology, we just need to understand what pH is telling you and what acids and bases really are. So the pH scale measures the concentration of hydrogen ions in a solution. So this term hydrogen ion, remember that a hydrogen atom really just consists of one proton, right, and one electron. If that hydrogen atom gives away its electron, it's going to split into a single proton, H+, and a single electron. So when you see that term H+, that is the same exact thing as saying one single proton. You can also call it a hydrogen ion. Either one is equally correct. Okay, so the pH equation is given as the negative log, right, base 10, of the concentration of those hydrogen ions in solution. And the reason that we do it this way is the negative log makes a more manageable scale for us, right? The concentration of hydrogen ions can be enormously different, from very, very small, 0.000 something, or incredibly large. And if we do this, it turns our concentration into a nice convenient scale that roughly goes from 0 to 14, right? And right smack dab in the middle, 7 is considered neutral. That's the midpoint on the scale. And so if something has a pH of exactly 7, which is what truly pure distilled water would have, we say that it's neutral. It's neither acidic nor basic, right? Anything below 7, we say is acidic. And anything above 7, you say is basic, which is a synonym and means the exact same thing as alkaline, okay? So let's think about the math of this. When we're calculating the negative log of the hydrogen ion concentration, a few things happen. The first is that negative sign flips the calculation. So what ends up happening is if you get an increase in your concentration of hydrogen ions, that actually means that you're getting a decrease in pH. Okay? And since a decrease in pH means that we're acidic, all that being acidic really means is that the amount of hydrogen ions or protons is going up. Okay, and so for that reason, an acid is really just any molecule that increases the amount of protons that you have in the solution. Right. On the flip side, if you were to get a decrease in the concentration of H+, that would mean that you actually have an increase in pH. Right? And an increase in pH means that you're becoming basic, right? Or alkaline, again, same thing. And so a base really is just any molecule that decreases the amount of protons in a solution. Okay? So in practice, this is giving you a scale of some biologically related things and showing you what their pHs are. All we know for sure is these things at the bottom have a very, very high concentration of protons, and these things at the top have a very low concentration. The next point, pH is on a log scale. The log base 10 means that if you go from 6 to 5, let's say, that's not doubling the amount of protons. That's actually a 10x increase, right? Because this is log base 10. Every click on the pH scale that you move is a 10-fold change. So from 6 down to 5 would be 10 times as many protons. That means 6 down to 4 is 10 times 10 equals 100-fold increase. Right? From 6 down to 3 would be a 1,000, right? 6 down to 2 would be 10,000. You get the idea. And the same thing going back up, only reducing the amount of protons by that much. So this explains why very, very small changes on the pH scale actually indicate very, very large changes in the amount of protons because of the log scale. And so when you hear that a human humans normally have a pH of around 7.4. If that person goes as high as just 7.6 or as low as 7.2, it can lead to pretty severe physiological changes. They'll get dizzy, they'll get loopy, have, brain, like cognitive impairment. because those really minor changes on the pH scale actually mean very, very large changes in proton concentration. And since acids and bases can both denature proteins, changing the pH of your blood is effectively like getting an acid or a base burn throughout your entire body. That's why it's so critical that we maintain pH at such a really precise level. Okay, so as an example of this, there are many, many different acid-base reactions that happen inside of biological systems. This is probably the most common example. All right, so if you mix water and carbon dioxide together spontaneously without an enzyme, although enzymes make it happen faster, you can get the production of something called H2CO3, which is carbonic acid, right? And notice that the arrows go both directions. So you can combine water and CO2 and go this direction to make carbonic acid. It is also possible for carbonic acid to break apart again and turn back into CO2 and water. Okay, we say that this is an equilibrium reaction, which just means it can go in both directions. And if you mix CO2 and water together and let it sit, you're going to get a mixture of both sides. It'll reach equilibrium and become stable at some point. Okay, but we will wind up with at least some carbonic acid, and that carbonic acid can very quickly break apart into two separate ions, a proton, H+, and this HCO3-, which we call bicarb, technically bicarbonate, but most people pronounce it just bicarb. And the bicarb is what we call the conjugate base. So if you see what happened, carbonic acid, the reason it's an acid is that when it breaks apart, what does it do? It gives away a proton. What's the definition of an acidic solution? One that has a high concentration of protons. So why is carbonic acid an acid? Well, because giving away protons makes the solution become more acidic. H+ levels go up. On the flip side, why is bicarb a base? Because when the reaction goes the opposite direction, what does bicarb have to do? It has to take that proton back again to turn back into carbonic acid. And so bases are molecules that soak up or remove or accept protons from a solution, right? And if you do that, you're reducing the concentration of H+, and that's our definition of a base. Okay, and so this reaction can go either direction. If we're going this way, we're becoming more acidic because we're releasing those protons. And if we go back this direction, we're taking the protons away again and becoming more basic or going back up on the scale. And in the end, you can use enzymes to make these reactions be controlled, so you can determine exactly how fast they happen and when they happen. And that'll come later on in the course. But for right now, just remember that that is really the definition of pH, and that pH level needs to be very carefully controlled inside of an organism so that you don't become too acidic or too basic and start disrupting cells and tissues and causing all sorts of dysfunction. Okay. All right, hope this is helpful. And follow the link at the end of the video to the next section where we're going to talk about a bit more chemistry and the structure of molecules and isomers. And make sure you flag the playlist, subscribe to the channel so that you get all these updates, and we can go through the whole book.